Welcome to Caching in the Northwest. You know, this is the official podcast of GeoWoodstock 18 right here in the great Pacific Northwest. Each week, we're going to talk about caches and cachers from here and all around the globe. So while you're fighting to keep your socks dry along the East Coast, we'll be caching in the Northwest. And, you know, we can't do that until we bring in our remote rhesus monkey. Some say he's able to throw his voice without moving his lips. And others say his time machine is not yet perfected. All we know is we call him Land Monkey.
Hey, caching in the Northwest. It is the Land Monkey. I am calling in from 4 hours in the future and just want to let you know the podcast went really well. So that's good news. Other than that, just want to let you know we are having a great geocaching #geocache road trip adventure. Currently in Atlantic Canada. We are settled into the city of Halifax, Nova Scotia. We just had an amazing experience up and down the coast. And if you follow our social media, you're going to see some really cool stuff that we've done in the last few days. We also really enjoyed Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick and Quebec. And we're really looking forward to moving on to the Atlantic states in the US. So we're going to be caching in the Northeast in not too long in the future. And for those who have been concerned, Hurricane Dorian is on its way, but we've made alternate plans and everything should be fine. The weather reports look, not great up around here, but certainly not as bad as the Southeast US has had it, and of course the Caribbean countries. So thinking about the folks who have been affected there, as we continue our planning and look forward to getting back at the end of our vacation and seeing you guys again. So thank you very much. Hope you have a fantastic show. Like I said, I know you will. And remember to cache safely and cache often.
Oh, thank you, Land Monkey. That was nice to hear from him. Now, if you're watching live, even if you're watching later, you may notice this show has a little different look to it. That's because we don't have a Land Monkey. We don't have a Wits End, but I think I brought in somebody even better. KevMacD is here to join us tonight, and we're going to talk about Adventure Lab. So, Kevin, welcome.
Thanks very much, Chris in the Northwest. I don't know about replacing the Land Monkey, but I'm his better looking cousin.
There's no doubt about that. Oh, hey, folks, a quick reminder that we appreciate the support of our patrons who help keep this podcast coming each and every week. And special thanks to Land Sharks, our corporate Denali level sponsor. And you would think when I have such a huge land shark going across my screen, I wouldn't mess up their name. But I just proving that this show is recorded live and unedited each and every week.
And an important landmark, if you're in the Victoria Esquimalt area, the Land Shark store.
Oh, how very nice. We did an event there last Christmas. We're going to have to do another one this year. I don't know if it'll be Christmas. There's nothing wrong with Christmas on the island, is there? It's quite beautiful.
I have to wear my Christmas suit again, just for Christmas.
Do you have any other holiday suits that maybe we should plan an event around?
Well, I have a Star Wars suit, but generally the Star Wars Christmas special is something one avoids.
Not anymore. It's become quite the cult favorite.
Well, you can try and sell me on that one later.
Okay, we'll try. If you want to know more about supporting the show and maybe getting an updated Zoot suit for either one of the hosts, click that Patreon link on the cachingnw.com website. I'm sorry, it's a Oppo suit, right? Is that what
Who?
What's the name of your suits that you wear? Is it a brand?
Oh, it is a brand. It escapes me at the moment. The suit that I have looks like a Christmas present. It's all.
Yeah. I think it's an Oppo suit.
Okay.
It's supposed to be like opposite, but Oppo suit.
Oh, yeah, I think that's right. OPPO. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only ones that I know of that have all those.
It's very punny.
Fantastic brands or fantastic
Oppo suit.
Yes, I am. May the 4th. Well, that would happen this year, then, would it? Nice. Another thing that we like, that we think is nice, are glows. That's the geocaching log of the week. Whether you wrote it, whether you read it, we want to hear about it because great logs simply make geocaching better. You can send an email or a field recording. That would be a recording you do on your smartphone out in the field. You can email that directly to feedback@cachingnw.com. You can call us 253-693-TFTC, or use the voicemail tool right there on the website and show us how you glow. I've given you so many different options, and you know what? People use them. Now, tonight we have one from R. Reagan. Let's take a listen.
With a nice early start, Kitty Shrink and I set course for Igor. For me, it had been awarded the honor of being my find number 9,000. For Kitty Shrink, it was just a blot on a sea of smileys and, of course, a year 2000 cache. We had heard tales of Igor and had prepared as best we could, not going to extremes like rope and crampons. The DT ratings on these old ones suck you in with false promises of DT 1/1.5. The mere name Igor should give you pause. Memories of monster movies arise upon hearing it in songs like The Monster Mash, where Igor Unchained and his baying hounds is featured, reinforce the concerns. Still, our merry duo found the trail pleasant, despite the tree with maybe a dozen vultures in it, to which we shouted, "I'm not dead yet!" This kicked off a series of Monty Python quotes. Great fun. I picked up caches number 8996, 8997, 8998, 8999 to set the stage for Igor being fined 9,000. Arriving at the base of the hill, Igor was maybe 200 feet away. We had sage advice from earlier finders about not going to the left of the trees, and under no circumstances go directly up through the tree, for the veil of poison oak lurked there. So little was left but to go to the right. Wading through the dried grass, we carved our own path as no geotrail beckoned to us. When we got within 85 feet, it looked like we ought to enter the trees for the final push. I found a dubious trail, while Kitty Shrink opted to crawl under some oak branches to get under the tree line. Once underneath, the slope began to steepen. In and of itself, steep usually means just take it slower. In this case, the underlying soil, combined with a generous layer of oak leaves, presented a different challenge. This soil presents different issues according to how damp it is. When very wet, slippery becomes real trouble. When very dry, the soil becomes powdery, and it, plus the overlying leaves, are right at their angle of repose, that angle where the surface is just short of starting to slide of its own accord. We thought we had hit the sweet spot, moist but not dry. We toiled up the slope with small gains and periodic recoveries, as either the soil or the leaves began to move downward. Finally, we reached the point where I could see the top of the container, perhaps a mere 15 feet further upslope and to the right, shielded from a direct assault by a generous growth of poison oak. So I continued directly up, carefully trying to anchor each foothold and secure with hiking poles. Not good enough. The surface let go, and I slid down into Kitty Shrink, who also fell. We did all we could to prevent sliding all the way down. A foot-high pile of oak leaves, planed off the hill, was just enough to halt our plunge. After a careful assessment and checking for damage, just a scraped arm, we began extricating ourselves and trying desperately not to slide further. I opted to scoot to my right, towards a large oak that might provide purchase, while Kitty Shrink moved the other way towards the poison oak stand, which promised some small shrubs that might provide handholds. After reaching my sideways scoot goal, it was clear the slope steepened more around the tree. Plus, I was now in a spot where a slip would drop me over a steep incline. Not a cliff per se, but it would have hurt. By then, Kitty Shrink had managed to find enough grips to get above the cache location, leaving only the poison oak cloak surrounding it. I butt-scooted back to her, excavating tenuous footholds in the crappy soil to keep me away from further slides downhill. Arriving at her location, she had already taken one for the team by extricating the container. We both signed. I posed with my 9,000 placard, and because it amused me, played the clip from Monster Bash about Igor. All that remained was to get back to the trail. Upward seemed the better choice, despite some rampant poison oak and a barbed wire fence. Unlike a previous sole, consult earlier log, we did not extract part of our skull on the barbed wire. We made our descent through the dry grassy slope on our butts, taking great care not to pick up too much speed. In retrospect, staying to the right of the trees all the way up to the fence and battling through the poison oak would be the best of a bad lot. Bring clippers. Igor is one of the tougher year 2000 caches I've done. I certainly won't forget it. These are the journeys that stick with you. A favorite earned for sure.
Oh, I love the Monster Mash here at the end. That was a nice touch. We've got some very dedicated listeners because Seebeck Tribe is going to listen to us while they're driving home. So Seebeck Tribe, drive safely.
And drive often.
That's right.
Wait,
now, I pointed to my arm for poison oak. I ran into some poison oak several weeks ago, and I can't tell you the last time I've been into poison oak or poison ivy. It was since I've been a child. And, I had it on my arm and on my belly. I think I touched it with my left hand and scratched my right hand with that hand or my right arm with that hand and spread it. And it was a mess. Don't do
that.
Yeah. Couple of prescriptions later, and you can hardly tell, but it was red and scaly, and it was one of the nastiest things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not a fan of poison oak anymore. I'm really paying attention.
Because you were before.
Exactly.
And it sort of spoiled it for you.
So, thank you, R. Reagan, for that well done glow. You know what, folks? You could read your glow in your own voice because you don't have to listen to our voices and our attempts at the fluctuations, the influences of your own voice is so much better. So call it in or record it yourself. Send it on in.
And I'm going to try and do exactly what you said they don't want to do.
What's that?
Which is hear it in my voice.
We've got other feedback, not just calling into 253-693-TFTC, but we love it when you give feedback of any kind. In fact, here's some YouTube feedback we received just this week.
From TickMagnet, who says, I have a part-time job now, and I need to get up early for work on Fridays. This makes me one of those who watch the show on YouTube. I'm thankful for this opportunity. Thanks. And thank you, TickMagnet, for leaving that feedback. We have also one from Kelly Braverman, who says, I watch the YouTube show because I'm in the Northeast, where the land monkeys are, and I'm sleeping when you do the show. Plus, then I can watch you dance. So again, thank you, Kelly, for that feedback.
Thank you, Kelly. Do you know how hard it is to dance with just your arms week after week?
You're a certified arm dancer.
Yeah. Yeah, I go out to weddings now, and my feet just stay in one spot, and my arms just flail around, and they look at me like, "What is wrong with that guy?" I look like one of those air blown cylinders to attract.
Things you see at the car dealership.
Yeah, Yeah, I forgot what those are called, but anyway, yeah.
Things at the car dealership. That's
exactly. That's what I look like on the dance floor now. Thank you, caching in the Northwest. Hey, we've got a little bit of geocaching news to share, and this comes directly from headquarters, but not just headquarters, also Nickelodeon. They've partnered on a limited time Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle trackable game pieces to celebrate the 35th anniversary of this iconic franchise. I had no idea it was that old.
I'm not that old, so well. Anyway, carry on.
Okay. I can't be that old. Turtle-themed Adventure Lab scavenger hunt to launch in New York in October, and additional global geocaching community events to be hosted in 12 cities around the world. To celebrate this iconic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 35th anniversary, Geocaching HQ has teamed up with Nickelodeon's animated series Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and are releasing 4,000 limited edition Ralph, Leo, Mikey, and Donnie geocaching trackable game pieces across the globe. I'm going to pause right there. I prefer their full names, as those iconic Renaissance thinkers, but
Leonardo.
Leonardo, Raphael, they got Leo,
Michelangelo.
Michelangelo, and Donatello. Yeah.
Mhm.
Starting today, and this was a couple of days ago, so you don't have much time left. Starting today, anyone can register to receive a Turtles trackable at geocaching.com/TMNT from September 3rd to September 10th, 2019. Trackables will also be available at select geocaching events held in the 12 cities around the world. Geocachers are encouraged to find all 4 of the turtles and share photos on social media using the hashtag TMNT cache and tag at. I don't know how to do the at sign, but yeah, at TMNT. We are beyond excited to be celebrating the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with an incredible global geocaching promotion, said Brian Roth, Geocaching HQ co-founder and president. Geocachers around the world are huge fans of the Turtles, and we can't wait to see them engage with Rafe. That'd be Rafe, right? Not Ralph. Roth, maybe.
Raphael. Yeah.
Yeah. Leo, Mikey, and Donnie, trackable game pieces as they travel the globe in search of an adventure. In addition, the specially curated virtual scavenger hunt experience will launch in October via the Geocaching Adventure Lab app. Why, I think we should talk about something like that.
What a great idea.
That virtual experience will guide players to unique Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle locations throughout New York City.
That sounds pretty exciting. And do you know where people register to find these?
Well, you head on over to geocaching.com/TMNT.
Or there's a link on your profile if you go to the webpage.
It's Tingo Mike November Tango, if you need to know that.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, TMNT.
Yeah. There you go. Wacky inflatable arm flailing tube.
Well, thank you, Keats, for the exact name of that thing. It's good to have the technical name.
That's right. The tube. Oh, so very nice. Okay. Let's talk KevMacD. That's kind of why we're on here, to talk about Adventure Labs. But before we get involved in how to build these things, which I've never seen the builder before, this is going to be exciting. Let's talk about what they are.
What it is. What is it?
And so is it kind of the updated version of geocachings.com lab caches?
Yeah, that's where the roots of it come from, the lab caches. And if you've never done a lab cache, they've typically been available at the mega or the giga events. Typically very, very short term, only a few days or possibly a week wrapped around the event. And then they're gone. I think, some people have also talked a little bit about Where I Go Light, possibly.
Yeah, I can see that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think Where I Go is very powerful, but really this would possibly be a replacement for it. It is an app, so you have to download it to your smartphone. Mm-hmm. For the most part, you need some type of data. So you need Wi-Fi or you need cellular to make it work.
Yeah. Now, the old lab caches had a web page you could go to. And you could download a GPX file. That's all gone.
That's all gone. Now you need the app.
Yep.
And there is no GPX file. It's
so
location based, actually, which is kind of unique for geocaching.
It really is. So what advantages does the Adventure Lab app offer?
Well, this new one has got some neat bits to it. First of all, they've introduced video. So it's not just photos. It's not just text descriptions. They've talked about media rich, but really right now it's YouTube video. I think we can expect more in the future. Again, a public directory, so you can see all of the available adventures. I looked this afternoon, there was about 500 of them published globally.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all over. they haven't said that they're going to stay, but they've haven't announced that they're going to go away either. So it might be a unique opportunity right now if there's one close to you to give it a try. Location validation. This was a feature. A lot of people talked about lab caches, and they would exchange GPX files, and they would exchange the passwords, and people would be logging lab caches from around the world without ever having been there. So it's possible now to turn on a geofence and say you have to be there to do it, which is kind of interesting. And the next one is linear gameplay. So as an option, and we'll talk about this, but as an option, you can say you have to start here. And then you can go to the next one, and you can go to the next one. It is an option, so you can just say, here's 10 locations, and you can go to them in any order. But they have added that option of linear gameplay. And I was looking at one this afternoon that had a very, very interesting linear gameplay argument, saying, really, you need to start here and then move to the next one and move to the next one. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Pardon me. We see that I'm sorry, I'm all choked up. B-Mart, you really got me on this one.
It's my humor, I can tell.
Was able to find his first adventure lab last Sunday at UTAG. That's Salt Lake History Tour. So that would be UTAG, would be Utah Area Geocachers.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
UTAG, that rolls off the tongue. That's a pretty good one.
It is, actually. Yeah.
It takes you to 10 lesser known historical spots in downtown Salt Lake City.
This is the part that I really like. I like the fact that there's an opportunity here to do some kind of training or education on the history of the area.
Exactly.
You're not locked into that methodology, but for a lot of these, it tends to be tourist spots and some information on where you're there or historical locations and what created those historical spots.
MC3 Cat says there will be another adventure soon. I'm building one right now. Insert user here.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Thanks.
We have no idea what it's about, but there's one coming soon.
But we have to take Chris's word for it.
Okay. One of the things that have tripped me up, because we've talked about lab caches for so many years, is this new terminology.
Sure.
Okay.
And, unfortunately, they've kept some of the terminology.
And they've kept it and reworked it, and it's just enough that I have to stop and focus myself because, I don't know if you've noticed, about every week I get in front of this stupid little microphone and I say things, and it's usually the wrong thing. And I have to go and correct myself. So,
well, they say that actually creates a good rapport on the internet because there's nothing like making a mistake on the internet to get 10,000 responses.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have a response, send that to feedback@cachingnw.com.
Or send it directly to LandMonkey. He'll appreciate that too.
Oh, there you go. Let me give you his phone number so you can text him and call him directly.
604-555-1212.
Monkey.
Yeah, there we go. They're called Adventure Labs. That's what the application is called. When you go to download it, it's called Adventure Lab. And obviously more than one is Adventure Labs. Each one is typically called an adventure. And when you get into it, the locations are called that. They're called locations. And I guess the only other piece of terminology I would add to that is the find code. And that's very, very similar to the lab caches the way they used to. There's always something you had to find and enter to complete the lab.
That's right. Okay, so we're looking at adventure labs. You're going to show us one adventure with multiple locations. Hey, how'd I do? Did I sound professional and like I knew what I was talking about?
It sounded great.
Well, thank you.
I'm just pulling up a screen here that I can share if that's all right.
That's right. So, Kevin, you're actually going to show us the Adventure Lab Builder. Now,
correct.
How did you get a hold of this? Is it just you were lucky and you paid geocaching.com more money to receive an Adventure Lab, or, were you kind and polished some lackey shoes to get this?
Yeah, I go with the groveling. Yeah, I didn't spend a lot of money. No, I'm on the board of directors for the British Columbia Geocaching Association, and the BCGA as a group was awarded an adventure lab, and I was the lucky soul who got to build it. And I don't know, we've just been talking about it, the show last week, and a few other places, and I thought it might be interesting for people to have a look at the builder.
That's great. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. And for those of you listening in audio, we're going to be as descriptive as we can as we go along.
So what's on the screen right now is what the icon for the application looks like. So when you go into, your iPhone store or your Android store, this is the icon that you're looking for. And it looks like one of the location markers on a Google map, but it's been kind of turned into a hot air balloon. Orange on a light blue background. This is what you want to get on your smartphone. This is the application to do the Adventure Lab.
Clever iconography there.
Yeah. There's probably
and a balloon.
Probably a story about how that came together, but I don't know how that's going to work. So now what I've done, I've changed the screen to be the British Columbia Geocaching Association's page for lab caches. And to stick with the terminology, this page is showing all of the adventures that the BCGA has. At this point, just one.
Whew. Good thing. Okay, because I only saw one there. I thought maybe.
Different events get awarded different numbers of these. I was at the Apex Mega, and I see Chris is online. Hi, Chris. They had a number of adventure labs associated with the Ape Mega. And then, I think we're expecting for GeoWoodstock, there's going to be a number of these as well.
Yeah. So. I'll talk just a moment about the Apex event there. That's what I prefer to call it now.
Apex. Okay. There we
go. It's the Apex, right? That's Apex.
Ape 10, Apex.
Yeah, that's probably what why they did that with the iPhone too. They made it iPhone 10, not iPhone X. So there were two adventures available. There was one with multiple locations at trailheads in the area that was up for a few weeks prior to the Apex event, and I believe it might be over now, but going on for a bit longer after. So it was a month or more that this adventure was up at the trailheads. And then there was another one, 8 or 9 stops just the day of the Ape event. And that one you had to do in order. That's the first one I've seen that you had to do the stops in order. So I thought that was interesting. There you go. That's all I wanted to say now.
Well, and I think a good example of both, being able to go to the trailheads in any order made a lot of sense. But then when you got to the tunnel, it really made a lot of sense to do them in order. So you didn't walk by one. It's quite a long walk. You don't want to miss any. Mind you, you get to come back, but yes. So the one that we're going to look at today is the Vancouver waterfront, and it's not a sequential one. You can do these in any order. In fact, it's sort of centered around the cruise ship terminal, and there are locations off to your left and off to your right. So perhaps you walk one direction and then turn around and walk the other. Didn't seem to make any sense to lock people into a particular location.
Sure.
So let's have a look if you're ready.
I am ready, and I think listeners are as well.
Excellent. So the first thing that you have to set up is what people are going to see on the map. I've chosen a photo here of the Vancouver Trade and Convention Center, the cruise ship terminal, essentially, and added it in. I'll open up the edit for this. But this is what people are seeing when they go into the Adventure Labs application and they start to look at different Adventure Labs they can do. They click on the little icon, the little teardrop, and they see a little pop-up window of the sails. That's what us Vancouverites call the Trade and Convention Center, these sails.
I thought it was a campground at first. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it's pretty high-end camping, though. There's a midnight buffet.
Oh, well, you got to love that in a campground.
Exactly. And so what they want here is the picture to be fairly wide and not that super high. It sort of fits their format. You're going to put these funny thing called coordinates, which is going to be a little hard for geocachers to follow, but the coordinates,
John.
they basically place the adventure lab on the map.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps the first location if you're doing it in a sequence, or wherever you think people should start the adventure from, or likely to start the adventure from. There's a little bit of a text piece. So we talk a little bit about the Vancouver waterfront and perhaps what you're going to see. If you need anything special to bring along with you, good pair of shoes or an umbrella in Vancouver, that's definitely a possibility.
If you're in Vancouver, you should already have a good pair of shoes and an umbrella.
Yeah, but lots of people visit, Chris, so
Yeah, that's true.
gotta warn them. There's this access code. This helps when you're testing before it's live.
Okay.
And this creates the basic adventure when you get in here and update your adventure. You have the shell of it, but of course there's no locations yet.
Okay.
So we have to go in here, and I know people are hoping that I'm going to show you the find code, but I'm not. So in this particular adventure, there are 8 locations based around the waterfront area. So you would create these in order if this is going to be a sequential order adventure. And you can see right here, there's a rate. I don't know what you call these. A clicky thing. That's what Keats94 would call it.
Like a on-off switch.
Like an on-off switch. And if this on-off switch is on, then you must do all of these in the order that they're in your adventure. If it's off, you got free will.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you would then create a new location. I'm just going to open up this Cassie Jack one and show you creating a new location. Each one needs a title, and it's very handy here that they tell you 50 characters. Don't go crazy.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so these things tend to have the size of the photo that they're looking for, and I like the fact that they say or larger. They're actually looking for really quality photos for these.
Mm-hmm.
So they're visually appealing.
I'm interested. Did you take the pictures yourself?
I did, yes.
Snap them? Yes.
Yeah, I took them myself with my iPhone X.
Oh, your iPhone X.
My iPhone X. That's the one. But this is a pretty standard, open up whatever's on your hard drive and choose the photo.
Mm-hmm.
And it fills in there. I did have some issue on my iPhone X that these pictures were originally coming out sideways. So I just opened them and resave them, and it seemed to work.
Yeah, that's an Apple thing. It
happened
for years.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have that problem if you have an Android X.
That's right. Now, for some reason, they know which way the phone was tilted when it took the pictures, and it's going to, twist the pictures back the way they should be when you're viewing them.
Theoretically. It seems to not work sometimes. Must be one of those, 0 instead of 1 things. Binary.
Somebody didn't flip the switch.
Yeah, exactly. So each location has a location as well that is typically separate from the starting location. So again, you're putting in coordinates, which hopefully all of our geocaching friends understand the basics of. You're not typically looking for a container here. Mm-hmm. You're looking for a region, so you don't need to be too terribly accurate. That being said, these can be physical containers if you want. So you're not restricted to finding big statues. You can actually direct people to geocache style containers. Here's there's some rules about creating an actual cache page and putting all of your location geo coordinates into it, and then asking the reviewers to review it but not publish it.
Gotcha.
So if that's one of the things you're looking to do, one or more of the stops in your adventure lab is going to be an actual physical container that you have to find, then there's an additional step there. Geofencing. We were talking about this. This is an option. People were talking about logging labs, the old style labs, from halfway across the world, and some people didn't like that. So this is your on-off option. If you would like to create a geofence, you can. You just check the apply geofencing box, and you create a distance in meters. So theoretically, people have to be within 50 meters. How many yards is that, Chris?
About 50 yards.
Okay,
about 150 feet.
Okay, perfect. Um,
Or
and
8,000 miles.
I
can't.
saw in the chat that there is a way to get around this, but for most people who are not completely geeky, this is going to make, yeah, there we go. This is going to force people to be within 50 meters of Gassy Jack before they try and answer the question.
And do they really want to be within 50 meters of a location called Gassy Jack?
Yeah, probably not. No, but the beans are really good.
Oh, you got to love them.
There's actually a little place there that does serve really good beans. Gassy Jack of Vancouver, one of the Vancouver founders who was known for talking a lot. Yeah, people who gas about everything. They're either bar owners or they run a podcast, one of the two.
Yes. People who like to hear their own voice. What are you saying? You know what?
Moving on.
Helen of the Land Sharks says, do long-term adventure labs have to be reviewed if they don't use a container?
That's a great question. No, they do not. They do not. This works very much like a multi, in the sense that none of the locations have to be any distance from any other location. And because there's no physical container, they don't need to be any distance from anything else. Some basic rule applies. Try not to put this in secret military bases.
Oh, so that Area 51 one that I've been working on probably won't be approved.
I'm thinking not.
I thought if you ran really fast from one point to another, their bullets couldn't catch up with you.
Well, I think they're going with that theory. If enough people go, they can't shoot them all. I won't be attending that event, just so you know. No.
I don't know if you've seen the high rate of speed at which many of these military weapons fire. They can't hit them all. But
they
anyway,
probably can.
We digress.
Yes, we do. I don't know how we get on these. So there's a description of this location, and here's where we get to kind of the interesting part. You can have a URL for a YouTube video here. So it will play the video as opposed to showing you the text description.
Nice.
And the basic rule is if there's a text description, it will not play the video, and vice versa. Well, not vice versa. The video will only play if there's no text.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, like the lab caches, there are questions to answer. Typically, they come from information found around that location.
Right.
And to complete this lab, you have to type in the find code for that location. Now, there's some cool stuff down here. You do not write logs for these like you do with a geocache. So no TFTC. These are kind of assigned to you by the creator of the Adventure Lab. So you can choose an image or a YouTube video that becomes part of the journal for the adventure location. And you can also put some text. So when you go back to look at them, in my mind, this journal should remind you of what you visited. So I've chosen a picture of Gassy Jack, in fact, the same one that is for this location. And I've just put cheers because Gassy Jack was a bar owner.
Interesting. In case you needed a little extra history to put in your description, Helen of the Land Shark says that Gastown is named after Gassy Jack. I used to work just across the street from the statue.
Wow, that's very cool. Helen's got so much interesting stuff going on. The little description here does talk about Gassy Jack being one of the original founders, and that the area around the bar is now known as Gastown. So
there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So this web page that you're showing me here, the location for an adventure lab, is not dissimilar from a new cache page.
Very much. Very simplified, but very much. You have to create a name and a description, and you can include photos, and obviously you have to have coordinates. If you're using geofence, then there's got to be some accuracy to the coordinates. Very much so. I think very, very easy to understand once you get a chance to look at it and click around a bit. I don't think very complicated.
Nice. And so you go through, you build a location.
Yes.
And then you can go build the next one, and they don't have to be sequential.
They don't.
if you don't want them to. Can you move them around if you decide, you know what, I think I want to add something between location 1 and location 2. Can you
That's a great question. I found some possibly conflicting information, which I know doesn't normally happen. But I did read a piece of information that said once somebody had logged it, you can't add new locations.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So whether that's true or not, I haven't tried. There's only 8 in this particular Adventure Lab. Typically, you put 10. I think that's the limit for the Adventure Labs at the moment. But I haven't tried adding a 9th one, and people have logged this. So
Okay.
yeah.
So this is an active Adventure Lab that you're showing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So yeah, I just changed the 2 fine codes on these just a moment before we started, and I'll change them back as soon as we're done.
We did a test of this to make sure it would show up well, and I'm looking and I go, there's a fine code right there on the screen.
Yeah.
You want to change that.
Except it's not the right fine code.
Now it isn't. No. So
yeah, when we were doing the test, yeah, that's right. It was the correct fine code. Now I changed it. So yeah. And it's just a little note again. People were talking about labs being logged halfway around the world. We've done a little bit of look into some of the things that we saw. Some people said there's a way to break the geofence. There is a way to break the fine code, and that is made more difficult by using more words.
Very good.
Or by using words that aren't particularly in a dictionary. And it makes it somewhat more difficult to crack. Not impossible, but I think for the average person, they're not going to be breaking fine codes with multiple words or words that are non-dictionary words.
I think you ought to put the entire first chapter of, say, the Da Vinci Code as the answers.
Yeah, people will be hunting me down in the streets.
Yeah, well, but nobody's going to be, accidentally logging it.
And, I think all these things, it has to be a balance, right? You can't make it too difficult for people.
Exactly. And, all this is designed just to keep honest people honest.
Yep.
Same with geocaching. You can say, hey, I found that one. Though I never went out and signed the log, I can log it online and say I found it. And what are you going to do?
Yeah, nothing. Right?
It's
not really much you can do.
Game.
So as you log each one of them, they become geocaching.com finds.
Yes, they do. That's right. They become actual finds that are locked in your find count.
That's correct.
Yeah. The original lab caches weren't necessarily in your find count.
Yeah, I remember something about that, but I don't remember the exact details.
And then they kind of were.
Yeah, then they kind of were, and then you were messing around in geocaching Swiss Army knife to try and make it all balanced. But it just seems like now it just becomes part of your count. Unfortunately, these locations and these adventures are not icons on the geocaching.com map.
Right.
You don't see the log in your geocaching profile. You just see the count. So
that's true. So yes, you have to use the Adventure Labs app to find these. You can't use the geocaching.com app or any of your third-party apps. They will not see these.
They will not see these. Absolutely. A couple other quick little things here. The adventure this is kind of self-publishing. The reviewers are going to love this. When you're first working on your Adventure Lab, you leave this off. It's not playable. It's not visible. You can then make it private, and this is where the QR code comes in handy. You can see the QR code there. You can make it private but playable. So you need to access it either through the little link that's above the QR code or through the QR code to get it to open in the app.
Oh, interesting. Private but playable. That allows you to test it, wouldn't it?
Correct. And you should always test it.
Oh, you really should always test it.
Especially if this is the first one you've ever created.
That's right. I mean, there are times you're out and about geocaching, especially if you're geocaching with a phone, maybe a Phone X.
Or an Android X, yeah.
Or an Android X, whatever smartphone X you're using. That where you are just isn't good, doesn't have a good GPS signal. Maybe you need to increase that radius of find so it verifies that you're there.
Yeah. And I did that working on this as well. I put 150 meters, and I realized it was far too generous.
Hmm.
I could stand in one spot and log nearly 4 of the locations. So it's like, I'll cut that down just a little bit.
Well, and that was one of the going back and talking about the ape event. There were a couple locations of the Adventure Labs in the tunnel. Well, that's a 2.25 mile tunnel. There's no way you're going to get cell signal in there. So they were very generous, and I think they allowed 2 kilometers either side, a 2-kilometer radius from those finds, so you could walk outside the tunnel and log them.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of why you want a very generous one. In the notes, they talk about, and this applies here too, but there's lots of free Wi-Fi in Vancouver. You're on a cruise ship, and you don't have local data.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you might want to give people a few kilometers, 2.2 kilometers or a mile, to get back to the cruise ship and be able to log them from the cruise ship.
Right. Or a nearby coffee shop. Yeah. If people are coming in from another country, and Vancouver, you're probably looking at just the US for cruise ship destinations, right? I mean, people would fly in and take a cruise from there, but if they're traveling internationally, not everybody has data.
Correct.
So
Right. Lots of Wi-Fi in Vancouver. So.
There you go. There you go.
And then the last one here is public and playable. This is the equivalent of publishing your adventure.
I got you. Keats 94 says, but Adventure Labs show up on your stats?
Yes, for each one of the locations, not the adventure itself, but the location. So there's 8 locations in this adventure. When you put the find code in, your find count in geocaching.com goes up by 1.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did this whole adventure, you would have found the equivalent of 8 caches.
I'm scanning through here. Let's see. Lab cache, I think, is still how it's labeled, isn't it? On your finds.
I don't know. I haven't looked. That's a great question.
I'm looking right now and I see lab cache at for me, it's 161.
Okay, so that includes your adventure labs.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that'll get renamed at some point.
Exactly. Well, there. Now I feel justified for being confused.
Yeah. They haven't
lab locations. Is that what they should call it?
Adventure lab locations. Yes, that's what.
See, I got it.
You're good.
Yeah.
You're good. Packed head. I like it. I was going to show one. Okay, go ahead. I see there's another question.
Pulling up people from the chat there. Met Helen from the Land Shark says, I met cachers from the UK while doing the downtown Vancouver Adventure Lab.
Excellent. Were they doing it as well?
International travelers.
Here we go.
They were caching, not doing the Adventure Lab, because they didn't know how to look for it.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't show up on your geocaching map. So, there's a certain amount of, you get somewhere and you open your geocaching app and looking for caches, but now you actually have to swap to the Adventure Lab app to see if there's actually an Adventure Lab there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, a bit of a downside perhaps to that.
Yes, it may be, but at the same time, if you're going to a mega or giga event, you're pretty sure there's going to be an Adventure Lab there.
Or 2 or 3.
Yes. Exactly. So you'll be looking for them. I was shocked when the Adventure Lab app first came out and I opened it and I go, oh, look, there's several up in Seattle. I had no idea we're there.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go do these.
So you got to kind of go back and forth. And Chris, how do I put this up on the screen? Chris Brew. There we go. Adventures rock.
Adventures rock.
How do I get rid of this now?
Oh, wait.
There we go.
You just have to snap your fingers.
You just wait.
Keats asked, do you think headquarters is going to eventually put Adventure Labs on the map?
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see, I'd love to see geocachers access all of the features as part of the geocaching app. But I think there's another market here, which could just be tourists or people visiting a new city, in which case they can access the Adventure Lab app and not worry particularly about the physical containers portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think there's lots of things happening. We're also talking about what's going to happen with Where I Go. Are they going to bring in some more of the features from Where I Go into this? That could be very cool too.
It could be. Yes, Where I Go is in desperate need of an update. You know,
Very much so.
it's a glitchy system. It was a glitchy system from the start, depending on what player you used.
Mhm.
Lately, some of the smartphone players have become pretty good, pretty reliable. MC3 Cats is a fan of Where I Go. He insists that we keep the Where I Go.
Well, I'm actually a fan of the Where guys too. I'm a geek though. I think
Yeah,
I like the idea that you can go to places and pick up virtual objects and collect virtual clues and drop virtual objects. These are all, quite an adventure. All virtual.
exactly.
I like the Where I Go. I don't know how much future it has.
So I think it would be nice. Well, here let's bring up BMAR's 7391 that says a separate app makes it hard to find the other caches you may be near along the way.
Yeah, you have to keep switching back and forth. That's what I was saying. It's real. It's
So
irritating.
having a tab, say, on the geocaching.com app that allows you to look at adventure labs while you're in the app, but maybe on a different map, I'd be fine with.
Very different icon.
Mm-hmm.
You look at some of some of the smartphone apps available on your iPhonics, and they have 3 times the icon real estate that geocaching uses. There's icons for caches that haven't been found yet, the so-called first to find cache, and lonely caches, and there's a whole pile of icons to indicate different things. It'd be pretty easy to drop an orange one in there. That's multi-cache in geocaching.com.
Mm-hmm.
To drop an adventure lab icon in there and have them show up.
Mm-hmm.
Even if all it did was say it's there, and if you want to access it, you have to go to the Adventure Lab app. That would be a win.
Sure. That's okay. We keep referring to Where I Goes. The Where I Goes show up on the geocaching.com app.
Yes, they
But in order to go play one, it takes you to the Where I Go site where you need to download the cartridge and what have you.
Yes.
Keith says, yes, keep the Where I Goes. Three Hams loves the Where I Goes, and he's done most of MC3 Cat's Where I Goes. Or Wigs, if you want it that way.
Where I Go. Wig, yes.
Yeah. MC3 Cats just built a paddle cache Where I Go.
Well, that's kind of kinky. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, he means boat. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Paddle cache Where I Go.
Paddle cache. Yeah. I think it's an amazing idea. It's implemented with a language called Lua, which is still very, very popular in the geek world. Lots of support out there in the world for people trying to learn Lua. And unfortunately, the last time geocaching.com did any sort of update was 2008. And everyone else has been trying to write their own engines based on a standard that really hasn't progressed in more than a decade.
Right.
So, somebody would have to put some mind process into where Wig is going. Where I go, I'm going to get all confused if I say it that way.
Where I Go is going.
And Where I Go is going. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it's time for an overhaul, but you've got to be mindful of the legacy code out there and be able to use the new with the old.
Well, yes and no. I would say that there's a lot of cartridges that don't work on one or more of the players. So, you end up kind of player shopping. Which player is going to play this cartridge? And not crash halfway through, and
Yes.
you have to start again and all that other kind of stuff.
I remember oh so well being in San Antonio and walking through the old foundation of the Alamo with my Oregon 200.
Mhm.
I'd go 2 or 3 points. I was cocky and didn't save, and I had to walk back. And it was a high temperature. It was a warm day, and gotta walk back and do this again because I have
Burn
to.
it all.
And then I'd get to save. Okay, reload it. Okay, next point, save, reload. It was tedious, but nonetheless, I did it.
Yeah. So yeah, I could use some mind space from geocaching.com to try and
Mhm.
maybe create some standards and some tests and maybe some test cartridges so that developers have, a solid test suite that they could start to advance. And there's a group that sort of works on it. It's very much a volunteer group, and membership has been off and on. People's lives, they work on it for a little bit and then get a little less interested in it and come back to it. So some good tools out there.
MC3 Cat tosses in. Unfortunately, in the early days of Where I Go, the Garmin Where I Go players gave Where I Go's a very bad name. And
They were quite buggy. Yes.
Yeah.
I did my first weeks on my Garmin 400 series.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, again, one of those things, you get a ways into it and boom, it will just crash.
Yeah. Well, okay. Enough about Where I Go's. That's not
Right,
the
let's
show.
come back. I've got one more screen I want to show you.
I suppose we're going to have to do a show on Where I Go's now.
Yes.
But that's not this show. This is the Adventure Labs. You've got one more screen. Let's take a look at
one more screen really quickly. I think this one is kind of interesting. Positive and negative things to say about the screen. It does show you who finished the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I tested it out early. I don't consider myself first to find or anything like that. But it does sort of tell you, it tells you how many times each one of the locations has been found. I find this kind of interesting that, people are not doing them all necessarily.
Yeah, that is odd.
They do have the top 3 people that have finished the cache. And I think this is not first to find as much as first to finish. So slightly different. This is kind of interesting. You can get some of this type of information. Obviously, people log your caches. If you have a premium cache, you're able to see who's looking at your cache. So this is kind of some of those functionalities. I think some of the drawbacks, there's really no place to report errors. So you get out there and you can't find the clue, can't find the find code. Who do you contact?
So if
been able to find
the
that
statue you're using has been removed, you don't
exactly
really know that.
Right? Yeah, couldn't get close enough because the gas.
Mm-hmm. If you're playing at home, you may want to know that the Seebeck tribe have made it home safely, and they're ready for bed.
Oh, so they want to get rid of us now? Is that it?
Well, that could be it. Well, I'm glad we could keep you company as you traveled home, Seebeck tribe. Kevin, thank you so much for showing us the Adventure Builder. I think most of us have done an Adventure Lab location, or at least the entire adventure. See?
Yeah, you got it. That's awesome.
And it'll be interesting to see. I want to see what comes up in the future with all these. So
yeah, I don't think they're done. I think there's more coming for sure.
Yeah. And I think they'll start to increase in complexity as people are able to push the envelope, because that's what geocachers want to do.
Absolutely.
Well, Kevin, as I say, I thank you, but I also thank all those who have tuned in. We hoped you enjoyed this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Next week, you know what? We're coming back for another show, and I will make mistakes again, but this time I'll have some help from IHAM. This week, Kevin helped me out with mistakes, but next week I'll have IHAM, and we're going to talk about weird Washington.
Nice.
I'm just going to leave it there. It could be George. It could be the state of. It could be DC. I'm just going to leave it there.
And I'm sure I'll be on chat helping you with corrections.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We do want to take a moment to thank Land Sharks, as Helen has been so informative about the Vancouver waterfront area. But Land Sharks is our corporate Denali level sponsor. Landsharks.ca is the outdoor adventure store and geocaching store. Check them out online or go in person to visit their store in Victoria, BC. They're open 6 days a week, except holidays, and they ship online orders every day. And it's a great place to go have an event. I missed the transition. Had to let the shark go one more time there. Okay. You can't stop the shark. It'd be like jumping the shark.
Yeah, no. We don't want to jump the shark. That'd be bad.
But also, we want to thank our faithful Denali level supporters. That's Landsharks, JP Geo Designs, Limax, Team Squirrel, and WorldCaching.com. If you want to know more about supporting the show, go over to cashingnw.com, find that Patreon link, click there, and you'll learn everything you need to know. But it's time. It's time for us to thank our patrons.
And we would like to thank Broncos Fan for Life,
And Sprouter,
Camp Clan,
Tick Magnet,
KevMacD,
Subway Mark,
Dora Moore,
Dune Buddy,
Kid Vegas 19,
GeoNav Pros,
Wino Seattle,
Acker Doc,
Billy Robson,
Genies,
Antaeus,
Keats 94,
Trexer Zero,
MC3 Cats,
Kennel Barb,
M Nerve,
Wet Coaster and Green Words,
Segehove,
Alarobic,
Keepers of the Cash Flow,
Highland Sky,
The Geo Travelers,
Boomer 365,
GSM ×2,
Kitty Quest,
T-Sayer,
Seaback Tribe,
who we know is home safe now, CRS 98,
and last but definitely not least, B. Pendragon, who's new and returning.
It's right. Thank you. Now, until next week, if people wanted to stalk you on the internet and ask you all sorts of Adventure Lab builder questions, where can they find you?
They can find me on geocaching.com as Kev_MacD, and also the exact same on Twitter.
Nice. And if you're looking for me, you can go on Twitter or Facebook and look for Caching NW. Instagram, I'm Caching in the Northwest. You know what's better? Head on over to cashingnw.com/hosts, read all our bios, and find the links that we just mentioned, because I know you're in your car and you're thinking, boy, I want to hit him up on Twitter, but I shouldn't be writing down this name as I'm driving 60 miles an hour on a crowded freeway.
Good thinking.
I agree with you. You shouldn't be doing that. But what you should be doing is listening to me saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Don't forget that you can be part of the show. Call into 253-693-TFTC and leave us a comment, ask us a question, send me a new pair of socks any time of the day or night. And of course, you can email us at feedback@cashingnw.com. Your support helps keep the quality shows coming. If you like this show, click the Patreon link on the cashingnw.com website and subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. Give us a thumbs up or even a review on YouTube. You know, we had a couple of people do that tonight. This show is produced by Chris Umfenauer, Jim Paulwitz, and Jay Kennedy. It's licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, copyright 2019 by Chris Umfenauer. And folks, we ask you to stay tuned for
The After Show.
Ooh. The After Show.
The After Show.
The After Show.
I promise not to do it 9 or 10 more times.
Yeah, 5 is the max.
IHAM says there may be some odd Oregon or idiosyncratic Idaho in our next show.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm not even going to try.
Oh, and Crazy Canucks.
Of course. What's a Crazy Canucks?
What about Captain Canuck?
Oh,
Did you read those comics growing up?
not the Captain Canuck series, so no. I did finally get your 42 years ago reference.
So last week, I opened the show with, if you're reminiscing about a Hockey Hall of Fame induction 42 years ago. And I didn't get a lot of response to that. So if you guys know what that is, what Hockey Hall of Famer was inducted 42 years ago.
Last week.
Last week, yeah. So I'm just curious. I would think this would be common knowledge for Canadians and their love of hockey. And you know what?
I don't see a lot happening in the chat there. So
Crickets in the chat. Apparently, I've pulled up one that
have a cup of
Canadians
coffee
don't
and
know.
think about it. Have a cup of coffee and think about it.
Yeah, there you go. MC3 Cats wants to know if I'll be in Long Beach for next week's show. Ooh.
Ooh.
That is the Cash Dash Splash. And yes, I'm planning to go. But I don't know. I will be here on Thursday night. I plan to go down on Friday. Because, I've got this whole work thing. Let's see. Jeannie says, I don't know. I know I don't have an idea of how difficult it is, but I'm not seeing some of the podcast on my podcast app when I'm driving. Well, that's not because of you. That's because of me. I am very close. I've done a lot of work lately. It's been a rough time at work and I've spent overtime, but new episodes will be coming out on your podcast app in no time at all. Highlands guy. Mistakes are fine as long as you have a Sharpie to fix them.
Oh! This is cashing in.
Yeah.
That's nothing to do with Alabama.
Oh, let's see. Well, whoops. Thank you, KevMacD, for providing such interesting information on the Adventure Labs.
Thank you. I'm glad that everybody's still hanging in there for the after show.
Yeah. Highlands guy wants to know, did anyone get their summer streaking souvenir? I finished mine off with a trip to Creston, BC. It was a fun little surprise promo. And it definitely was a surprise promo.
Yeah, really short. This is happening in a few days kind of thing. And we tried to get the information out on some of the Facebook sites, but I think it just caught a few people short. People are working and getting ready for back to school. I think what's interesting is that with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles promotion, there's kind of a hint, possibly the fall promotion, if you read that.
Oh, interesting.
Find these things, and it looked like there were going to be different caches. It sounded a lot like Mystery in the Museum, kind of, but instead you're finding Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
In a museum?
Yeah, exactly.
No, in a sewer.
And while you're streaking.
Ooh.
Don't streak in a sewer. That's not a good idea.
I'm thinking didn't like that there's only 2 weeks notice.
Yeah, very short.
Starcaster got his on September 3rd when he logged his last one. Keats94 got his. In case you want to know, the Cash Dash Splash series of events next week will have an adventure lab.
There we go.
We have it directly from the cat's mouth.
Just gonna leave that one.
Okay. The Land Sharks finished off theirs on the last day.
After dark
with a great cache by Island Finders.
Now, Island Finders caches can be a challenge. They have good caches. They can be tricky to find.
Mm-hmm.
So in the dark, that's even more.
Oh, interesting. Okay. UDAC says, still here. Didn't attempt Streak Week because I'm saving my local caches to complete my calendar grid.
Yeah, I must admit I burned through 2 of my local caches completing the Streak Week, ones that I'd been holding on to for just such emergencies, but I was a little bit disappointed that I needed to go through 2 of them.
UDAC also says, I heard there will be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventure Lab.
Well, so let's go back, because I know we talked about this a bit, but one of the things you can do with Where I Go is a locationless Where I Go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen that ability in the Adventure Builder Lab, but that would be a cool add-on. Then you could do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in any city.
That's right. Oh, that would be interesting. Let's see. I'm looking back through the release from geocaching.com. In addition, a specially curated virtual scavenger hunt experience will launch in New York this October via the Geocaching Adventure Lab app, which will guide players to unique Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle locations throughout New York City.
So what's unclear to me is whether, because they use the word virtual, so Is it a virtual experience where you have to be in New York, or is it virtual New York everywhere in the world?
Oh, interesting.
So, you walk down Broadway, but you're in your own town. So that's when I read that, I kind of thought, well, this could go either way. This could be the fall promotion.
Um,
Otherwise, we're all going to New York, right? It's paid for by Caching in the Northwest.
maybe not. Let's see. So I mentioned there were 12 cities, but I didn't read them. So
Yeah.
Berlin, Germany, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Homa, Louisiana, Louisiana, London, Louisville, Kentucky, Madrid, Spain, Memphis, Tennessee, Mexico City, Milan, New York, Paris, and Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Yeah. Nowhere particularly close to here.
No. Not many. I didn't see any in Canada, though this is a worldwide promotion. Yeah, Homa. I'm sorry. I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's tough to read and one thing and say another.
Mm-hmm. Like phonics.
Exactly. That Kentucky is not closer. New York is not closer. Memphis is not. Memphis might be the closest.
Might be.
MC3 Cat says a play anywhere adventure.
Right, which is a type of where I go. Yeah.
So there you go. Now you have all the information I have, and we can speculate.
Well, hey, we can do more than speculate. We can start our own rumors here.
Let's do that.
I have a rumor that I want to talk about.
Oh, please. That's what the after show is for.
Exactly. I have got the GeoWoodstock.
Wait a minute. What is this you're talking about?
I know. This is now available on the GeoWoodstock.com store. And I was lucky enough to attend the 1 year to GeoWoodstock event and was able to pick this up. And look, I'll even show you the tracking code.
Wait.
Oh, wait. No, that doesn't work.
No, I see it. I have X-ray vision.
Hey. It's okay. I do have a shirt on, but never mind.
Oh. Now it's awkward.
So again, that's the deal. I'm quite happy with this coin. I love it.
So you can get this. What is that process called? It's a red maple leaf, but there's I can't come up with the term. How the red looks a bit translucent.
It is a translucent red on a pretty finely engraved coin. Like you can see the design that's under the transparent showing through. Same sort of thing with the information. It doesn't show up great on my little camera here, but you can see it says Canada, and the event code is on there, and the dates, a few other things like that. So
nice, and that's on GeoWoodstock.com.
GeoWoodstock.com, and they've got a couple of other items that are available right at the moment. They have these great hats.
Oh,
yeah, and they have a trackable tag as well at the moment.
Thank you. I am enameling.
Well, he says enameling ?
Yes, it's a transparent enamel.
If Helen comes on, I'm sure she can tell us exactly what that is.
She would, yes. And that's what I was kind of hoping for, playing out a little bit of time, but it didn't happen yet.
Yeah, she's given up on us already, I think.
That's okay. She's given us more than enough information this evening.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next week, get out and get caching in the Northwest.